What for you are the signs of doing it well or doing it badly?
I agree with what you said. It's not in our capacity to measure only by the momentary state we are in, when there's some bliss or some peace. It can be easily taken as a measurement, which is wrong. On the other hand, for me, practice of sitting meditation was always very important. That was how my path started. And I find the concentrated mind in sitting to be a great help for self-inquiry, which of course is not restricted to sitting. It's very important that it can flow over the boundaries, so to speak, and reach every possible second and moment in your daily life. But for me, it's both. It's kind of, I would say, it's like a microscope, and I can perceive much more precisely where I am, where the thought is, where the object and where the subject is. And this gives a great sharpness also for daily life. So I recommend this approach. This has helped me as far as I can judge myself most.
It's very interesting what you say about the benefits of formal sitting meditation, because one thing that Bhagavan always insisted on was that self-inquiry wasn't a formal meditation practice. When Paul Brunton came here in the 1930s, he recorded a statement from Bhagavan in which Bhagavan said that sitting meditation is for, I think he said, the merest spiritual novice. He regarded it as a kind of beginner stage, in the same way that you learn how to swim in the swimming pool, and once you've mastered that, you can jump in the ocean and you'll be okay. Now the problem with that is that I haven't met anyone I know who's ever undertaken self-inquiry who would disagree with you. Everybody I've met who does self-inquiry tells me that they do it better sitting down with their eyes closed. And this is completely against what Bhagavan taught. Now the classic example of this is Annamalai Swami, who long ago built this building we're sitting in right now. He told me that he had daily access to Bhagavan several hours a day. He was sitting with Bhagavan in the evening with the ashram workers. He had private sessions with Bhagavan during the day when Bhagavan would inspect his building works. And at all these times, the 10 years that he had this constant company of Bhagavan, Bhagavan was saying, while you work, do self-inquiry, be aware of the self while you're doing this work. And Annamalai Swami said, I couldn't do it. He said, Bhagavan wouldn't even let me sit down. Every time I sat down, he'd invent a new job for me. He'd give me something else to do. And there is a famous instance of when everybody in the hall was sitting very quietly, and Annamalai Swami walked in, and Bhagavan immediately started talking buildings to him. And somebody in the hall said, more or less, why did you disturb the silence by talking about buildings? We were all sitting here very quietly. And Bhagavan said, I couldn't help it. This man walked through the door, and his whole head was full of buildings. So I responded to him, to his mind, to his thoughts, which were building thoughts, and I had to talk buildings to him. So for 10 years, despite Bhagavan's best advice, Annamalai Swami had a head full of thoughts about buildings, supervising workers, supplies. Then, when Bhagavan finally gave him permission to go to Palakottu and sit and meditate, Annamalai Swami said, suddenly it clicked. When I had the time, the space, and the inclination to sit there and do formal meditation and have no distractions, then suddenly it worked for me. So if somebody like that endorses the superiority of having time and space to do formal meditation, even when he's just had 10 years of constant association with Bhagavan, then I have to say that Bhagavan's advice that one should incorporate it in one's everyday activities is, although ideal, not entirely practical for most people. I would say that Bhagavan encouraged people not to waste their mental energy. He said that if you have a family, if you have a job, I mean, Annamalai Swami had a very busy job. It's okay. Annamalai Swami had a very busy job inside the ashram, but in his spare time, his mind wasn't dwelling on the self, his mind was spinning around thinking bricks and cement. What Bhagavan told Siva Prakasam Pillai was that at all times when your mind is not needed for your daily duties, that's family and your job, take it back to the self and keep it there. So this was Bhagavan's advice to people like Annamalai Swami who had a very busy, active life. Don't skimp on your duties, don't skimp on your obligations, but whenever the mind is not needed for all these activities, put it back in the self and keep it there. And he said, if you can succeed in doing this, then at all the times when your mind is needed to be busy, looking after your family, doing your job, there will be a background current which was created by you not wasting your spare time. If you corral all the thoughts you have during your spare time, if you bring them back to the self during your spare time, then in the rest of the day, which might be incredibly busy, there'll be a peaceful, quiet background current which persists throughout your everyday activities. Now, as I said at the beginning, this is the ideal. This is what Bhagavan recommended, but I know virtually no one who has succeeded in this. We all take the Annamalai Swami route. We have a busy, active life, and whenever we have time, we sit down, we be quiet, and try to get our minds back to a sense of inner stability.
Yes, I basically agree with this, what you said. The point is, what is practical? What is working for me? Which is, as you said before, maybe hard to decide for oneself. Silence, as you said, you quoted Bhagavan before, to have a silent mind which is not proliferating all the time is one way to measure your own progress. So, practically speaking, it seems to be the best course to have an alternation between sitting practice, and each one may do it a bit differently, and trying to follow that current. In fact, that was also mentioned to Paul Brunton in one part, where he said, you meditate regularly, and this will leave a current in you which you can follow up in your daily life.
I will go back to what I said. I'm not being extreme on this. I'm not saying that you should learn how to do inquiry with a few preliminary sitting sessions and then give up sitting completely. I think throughout the whole of Bhagavan's occupation of the old hall, the standard default mode of most people in that hall was sitting quietly, cross-legged, with their eyes closed, doing some sort of practice, hopefully inquiry, and Bhagavan never said, stop doing that. He encouraged people to sit quietly in his presence, he encouraged meditation. What I am trying to stress is that he didn't say have a sharp division between meditation and life. He said learn to do the basics of inquiry by sitting down, by focusing your mind, because up till that point in your life you've probably never tried to get a grip on the mind. But once you've learned how to isolate your thoughts, how to take them back to the source, then don't limit it to formal meditation sessions. Incorporate it into your life as you're walking down the street, as you're eating your meals, as you're sitting on the bus. There's endless wasted hours during everybody's day, and if you can use those wasted hours productively, then all the times you have to be busy in your daily life, they won't bother you because there'll be a kind of background current persisting.